There has been a lot of talk in the media about the controversial new sex education curriculum set to be introduced in schools all across Ontario this September. In 2010, a new sex education curriculum had been introduced by the Ontario Liberal government, then led by Dalton McGuinty. The curriculum was met with much objection by Ontario parents who thought much of the curriculum was too sexually explicit for students. Kathleen Wynne, then the education minister, is now the Premier of Ontario. Liz Sandals is now the new education minister. Here to talk some more about this is Peter John Mitchell, senior researcher at the Institute of Marriage and Family Canada. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So tell me what you've been hearing from parents about this curriculum is coming. It's going to be in classrooms come this September.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly the concern, I think, is growing. I'm hearing more and more from parents who are concerned and are concerned about the process, confused about the process. I think parents probably have not been consulted on the curriculum as much as I think would have been helpful. So there's certainly this element of being caught by surprise. And certainly there's also an element of concern about what will be in that curriculum and will it be age appropriate for their child.
And so their concern is the consultation. I know that the Liberal government has said that they have consulted parents. They've sent out surveys. Have you heard from any of those parents that have received those surveys? I
haven't spoken with any parents that have filled out the surveys. I have seen the survey myself, and I appreciate that that step was taken. It might be a little too little, a little too late, and certainly many of the questions in the survey were fairly general. So I'm not sure what will be gleaned from that. I'm not sure how that will be used going forward. Certainly there's been 5 years since the last curriculum was rescinded. So there's been plenty of time to consult with parents, but it's unclear what steps have been taken other than that survey to engage parents.
Are you finding that parents are against sex education, or are they just questioning age appropriateness?
I think if we look at surveys of parents, was a survey done a couple of years ago in New Brunswick and in other places. We find that parents generally do support some form of sexual education in the schools, but where there's almost really no single agreement as what does that look like, what is the philosophy that grounds that, what is the content. So that's where it tends to get murkier among parents. But there does seem to be a role for the school. I would say that parents are the primary sex educator. I would say the research shows that, and it's important for parents to take the lead in that. The school does have a secondary role in coming behind parents, and I think when there's more communication between the ministry or between particularly the school and parents, then I think we're going to see a better program.
What else are you finding when you're talking to parents and talking to people concerning this?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that that the research can say to parents is that you matter, and that the way that you talk about this issue and the way that you address this issue does matter. A few years ago, we did some research looking at some Statistics Canada data that looked at elements of home environment, and then looked at those same kids a number of years later when they're in their teen years, and it really does make a difference. There is correlations between the kind of home environment that you have early on with your children and the sexual decision-making process later on. So it's really important to make sure that parents are creating a relationship that's open, that they have just generally warm, communicative type of relationship with clear expectations, clear boundaries, and to keep those lines of communication open. Even as we move into the teen years and it seems like your teen doesn't want to hear from you, they do. They want to be affirmed from you, and that's the time to really start to make sure that you are listening and that you're there for them. Yeah.
I think that's a good point, because I think it's one thing to say if you're for or against this curriculum, but it's another thing to say as a parent, I'm going to take an active stance in my child's education about sex, and I'm going to make sure that, they hear this information from me before they hear it from anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important that parents take the lead, and the time to start that is now, actually. There are many age-appropriate ways to engage kids, and using their curiosity is somewhat as the key, but also there's going to be a sense of leading as well. And I think when you walk beside a small child, often you find that they'll lengthen their stride and you'll shorten your stride. And I think in many ways this topic is a lot like that. We're going to have to stretch our kids a little bit because they're going to be engaging this material. It's going to come to them. The same way we need to do that in a way that's age appropriate. And that's different for every kid. Every child has their own sensitivities. And that's the trouble with the curriculum is somebody in an office somewhere has to choose when are we going to introduce these topics. But a curriculum as good as it can be cannot be responsive to the sensitivities of every child. And so that's why it's important that parents really take that prime role.
So what I'm hearing is that you're hearing that parents want to walk alongside their educators and they want to have a partnership. You know, obviously respecting the role of the parent, but they want to be able to do this together as opposed to I'm sending my child off and now teach them whatever they need to be taught.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that through surveys more and more. And how that's done is an incredible challenge. How, not just on this issue, but how do we have a healthy relationship between parents and the school? How do we navigate that? How do we make that happen? Is a significant challenge. But I think there is the desire there. Parents want to be involved. Certainly, earlier surveys have shown that here in Canada from New Brunswick show that parents support having a sex ed curriculum, as I said, but they want to know what's going on. They want to be a part of that as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Peter John, for all of your work and all that you do. We'll definitely keep our eyes peeled and see what happens with this new curriculum.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, if you're concerned about this new proposed curriculum, our friends at the Institute of Marriage and Family Canada have created a helpful resource. You can find that at our website, 100huntley.com.